let us move on to our game of the week. This week, we are reviewing a game called Chronicles of Crime. It is a cooperative game, as we just said.
Which is not your favorite?
Not my favorite. Not my favorite. You could totally play it solo, but you'd be exhausted at the end. Let me just give you the stats on Chronicles of Crime before I hand it over to Jesse. This is a 1 to 4 player game. Yes, like I said, 1. It could be a solo game. It came out in 2018 from Lucky Duck Games. And it was, let's see.
Designed by David Cicerel?
Yeah. How
right?
do you say that name?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to say Cicerel or Sicurel.
Yeah.
But this is David's definitely his biggest game. He is not a wildly prolific designer at this point, which makes me think he's probably new to designing, and good for him for having such a big hit right out of the gate.
He had Fruit Ninja earlier this year.
Fruit Ninja, the card game version of that. He had a game called Selfie Safari.
I think that's coming out.
That's coming out. Interesting. But yeah, this is his first big game, and it is... I originally thought when I saw it that it was sort of in the realm of the escape room in a box kind of games, like Escape or Exit or things like that. And that was definitely my first thought of it. But after playing it, it seems like it's a little bit more like Sherlock Holmes. So, or even an episode of CSI brought to life. So, Jesse, tell us a little bit about Chronicles of Crime.
Right. I would say first off that you should not approach this like an escape room. This is, it's a cooperative detective. You're trying to solve a case, and I think the heart of this game is in talking about what, who's done what and where to go next, and not trying to do it as fast as possible. Although there is a clock in the game.
Yeah.
Every time you take an action, it takes 5 minutes in game, or if you travel to a new location, it takes 20 minutes.
Well, and the clock is your score.
It's your score.
Which makes it a wonderful game for the analytical gamer who wants to have... This is not a binary you win, you lose detective game, which I feel like these often are. It's not like Clue, which is you're either right or you're out.
Right.
This is...
It's messy. It's a narrative, which is great. It's like,
But there is a goal at the end to do well. Now, and what I think makes this even better for the analytical gamer is that you cannot do this again because you'll know all the answers. Right. So you really are, this is your one shot. Don't blow it. Make it win or
won't sleep.
Or get out that whip.
And I will say that when we played it the other night was the worst I think we'd ever done.
And I'm proud of that. Very proud of that. And you even said, so we were playing speedily. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce that word. We were playing speedily. I wanted to say speedily, but that's wrong.
Yes. We were going very quickly. It was, it's interesting. I feel like this game would do best. I'm not saying you need to be this to play this game, but it would probably do best amongst actors, improvers, LARPers.
Yeah.
Who also like
role-playing gamers
and puzzles. Who also like puzzles.
Yeah,
you don't have to be that. I like to give voices to the characters. It just adds just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
You don't have to do that to enjoy the game, but I think it adds a little bit. I think anything you can do to get into the world and to make it feel like a detective noirish kind of thing, the more you're going to enjoy it. Right. If you race through the game, you will miss things.
Totally.
And you're going to get someplace you'll be like, wow, this game's broken.
Yeah.
Right. But I really enjoyed it when you find the right group of people to do this with, and it will be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the element of this game that is new and unusual in board games, which is
it uses an app.
Well, even more than that, I think this is the first board game that uses virtual reality, or at least the first one that is a success. Now, the game is you must have an app. Yeah. Much like Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, or Mansions of Madness 2.0, there is app dependency in this game, which for a lot of people, they go, I don't want to use an app. The whole reason I'm playing a board game is I don't want to play a video game. I think those people have a point, but I think also they probably have not tried the best versions of how an app can not take over the board game experience, but add to it. And I think this one does a good job of it. So
I think it really works.
You're not using it all the time. Well, you're using it all the time as a camera, which is an interesting thing. So every character or every location or every item, everything in this game has a QR code, one of those little weird things that looks like a Space Invader. And you actually take the app and you snap pictures of things. When you want to talk to somebody, you snap their QR code and now you're talking to them.
You're in interrogation mode. Exactly. And now you can talk to other you can talk to that person and ask them about anything else in the game.
Right.
And by scanning their QR
right.
code.
So then that was an interesting thing that I had never seen before. So I scan this person's QR code. Now I'm talking to them.
Yep.
Now they're like, what do you want to talk about? Now I scan maybe, the murder weapon or something. And now they'll tell me about that. Or now I scan another person and they tell me about that person. So it's an interesting, you're taking a lot. We probably took 1,000 pictures in an hour or something. I mean, you're snapping a lot of pictures, which I think would make it best on a phone and not an iPad.
For sure.
I think an iPad would be a little annoying to be holding this whole thing, so it works best on a phone.
And by the way, you actually can't scan locations. For some reason, you can't ask a person
about a location
because it will take you to that location.
Right.
Which is
some weird
strange.
edge
I don't know
cases.
why they can't design around that, but that is the way it is.
Yeah.
The other tech thing, I did not use the VR goggles.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that really quick. So other than using it as a QR scanner, when you get to certain locations, you are given the option of examining a crime scene or examining a location. And when you do that, your camera, your phone, becomes a VR window into that world. So you're literally standing in one place, and as you move your phone around, you are seeing what you would see if you were in that location. So if you hold your phone all the way up, you'll be looking up at the ceiling. If you hold the phone all the way down, you're looking at the floor. You can zoom in on things. So they do have goggles that you can wear that you can slide your phone into and actually feel like you're in that location looking around.
I hear is fine, and you don't,
Sure.
it's cute, and
you don't
it's
need
not
it.
necessary,
right? You can just hold your phone.
Yeah, and let's be clear that you're not actually walking through a three-dimensional space. You are standing in the center of a room,
right,
and you're looking 360 all around,
right?
And then you can send that from your phone to, say, an iPad as a second device,
or a television, which is what we did.
I think this is why they say this is better for 4 people, or I've heard that I think Board Game Geek says it's better for 2 and not 4. I think it's because some people feel like they feel left out and they can't look at the app, I'm guessing.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's
because
great
you can hand it to other people to take turns, but that takes up time, right?
I think it takes more 5 minutes of time every time you do that.
That's rough.
But we cast it through Apple TV onto the big screen.
Which is maybe cheating, but works great.
No,
it's great.
Why couldn't we all, if this was a real thing, why couldn't we all be in that room?
And this is the most interactive part of the game because one person has to be looking around and saying everything they see. And then somebody else needs to be pulling the items from a stack of items that has been seen. So, okay, guys, I see
a dead cat.
I see a dead cat. And so then you have about, 40 or 50 cards, and each card has a different thing on it. So somebody goes
general categories.
Yeah. So animals. Okay, grab animals. Pull it to the side. We're gonna have to look at that later. Different murder weapons, a million different items that you can think of, and then pulling those as you see them in the app or as the people call them out. Because you really have to. This is probably where it gets very difficult as a solo game because it would be really hard to be doing both.
I suppose you just have to remember all these.
You just
things.
have to remember.
You can totally play this by yourself, Matt. You can borrow it when I'm done. But that's what's great.
That was
about
the
this.
interesting part.
This really is a platform to create other scenarios,
right?
So I was excited when I first saw this. It was like only $35. Wow, it's a steal.
$39.99 is the MSRP, I think. But yeah, you can get it for $35 on Amazon stuff. Yeah, not an expensive game,
right?
Not a wildly expensive game.
So that comes with like the forensic. I forget what the first one's called, but it's the Scotland Yard,
right?
And that comes with a tutorial, and then I think 2 regular scenarios, and then a campaign of 3 scenarios.
So you get about 5, and they're each, I'd say, about an hour, probably.
Hour and a
half, yeah. So you're getting 5, and yes. So a question people are going to have very quickly with this is there any replay value? There's not. I would not play the same one twice. Once you've gotten to the end of it, you could then just solve it. But what we did was there are DLC. There is downloadable content, new things they're adding in, and of course new expansions. So how much did it cost to buy this one?
They're $5. They're
$5. So
extra scenarios, a whole thing of them, a list of them. Boom.
Right. Cheaper than a movie ticket.
Yeah.
$5. You have a bunch of friends over. Right. $5, and you have a whole new experience. And there's a bunch of them down there that you can download.
Yeah. And then there's the Noir expansion, which is going to add new locations, new people,
some new mechanisms,
and then a couple new mechanics. So they have these specialists normally in the base game where you can call them. It's a little bit weird narratively when you have the guy who can do an autopsy over the phone. But I understand in the game you need to have that kind of thing. Right. But you got somebody who can do fingerprints, and you've got the hacker, and you've got the criminologist, and it's really interesting. But then in the Noir version, they get rid of those 4. But now,
because there's no cell phones, which is a cool thing, right? So you couldn't be calling people.
Yeah. And then, so now you can,
they give you some actions to
yeah,
do.
you can take actions. You can shadow, you can follow people if you think they're suspicious.
You can rough them up.
Yeah, you can intimidate them, and then you can break in, and then you can bribe people. So
That's
it's
cool.
really cool.
That's a nice way around that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part of the reason I think the game has a lower price point to get into it, because they don't want people to spend $60 and then be annoyed that they have to buy more stuff. Now, you don't have to buy more stuff. I think most people would buy this box, and if they're lucky, finish all of the things. I mean, that's 10, 15 hours worth of content right there.
Right.
So so I think it's a pretty good steal at that price for you're going to get probably 15 hours of content, five different scenarios that you can run with your friends. Right. 5 different awesome game nights. So, $7 a game night's not a horrible price.
I've done all of the original, like the Forensic, I think Forensic Files or whatever it's called. And I've done a couple of the Noir, and I think I've spent probably about $85-$90.
Okay. Yeah. So it gets expensive, but you're in it. You love it. Yeah. It does feel like an episode of CSI. So if you love those kind of murder mystery TV shows, those procedurals, this will definitely
CSI
throw you into that world.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does do a good job of simulating what it feels like to solve a crime.
Yeah. I will say, as like the writer in me, sometimes at the beginning of a scenario, this has happened on multiple occasions with me and somebody else, we go, I have a feeling it's, it could be this person's doing blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to say what it is, but I'll say it out. And then people will nod kind of, sure, we'll keep that in our mind. Mm-hmm. And then I was right. Mm-hmm. Because I'm thinking...
Analytical gamer.
Right. But I'm thinking there's a reason that this story is here. A writer's like, okay, this basically is why we're going to put the scenario in the package, because it'll have this cool twist. Mm-hmm. And I've seen so many movies, or, I'm just imagining what they might do.
Right.
And
there was a cool one in ours that I won't spoil, but there was a thing in ours where I was like,
that was the reason it was there.
That was cool. And who came? Was it Paul who really? Yeah. And then we all went, like there was a character that we didn't understand why that character was in our scenario until the very end. Yeah. So let's talk about the end game. So the whole point is you are learning things about the mystery, and then when you are ready, you go back to your captain. You go back to Scotland Yard or whatever, and you tell them you're ready to answer it. Now, when you answer it, you're given a test. I mean, you're given an actual test to see how well you know it. And you won't know the questions they're going to ask you. And I was surprised I thought some of the questions I assumed they'd ask us, they didn't ask, and they asked some I didn't think they would ask. Yeah. And you have to know the answers. And depending on your answers, you will get your score. So sometimes the answers are the questions are as simple as, who is the murderer? So then you take the camera and you take a picture of the person you think is the murderer. Where was the murder done? Right? Okay, here.
No. Yeah, no, I guess they could have done that.
They could, what was the weapon? Yeah. Why did this person kill the person? Right. And then you have to, because of this item, because of the money or whatever, So, and that was a cool thing, because it's like I sort of wondered, like, how is this going to end? Are they just going to ask us but they asked us probably 10 questions, 12 questions. I mean, it was a bunch.
Yeah.
And it was you really had to know everything by that point.
We got 62 out of 100 on that one.
Not good. But we got 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know what the difference is on that. There's those little stars at the top. So that made me feel better.
But yeah, I've gotten.
We knew who the murderer was. We knew who the murderer was. We knew the motive. We knew there was just a couple little tweaks we didn't know. And I think we went way over time too. There was a you have to report by this certain time, and we didn't do that. I think we lost a lot of points for that.
Yeah. I will say, there were some issues with knowing what to scan. Like when you're trying to capture a narrative, I think this does a really good job of making you feel like you're solving a crime.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed just sitting back and going, okay, let's write the story. Let's understand what happened. Why is this character here? And we were telling a story. And when you're right, it's so cool.
Yeah.
But now sometimes when you're being quizzed on what happened and you're like, oh, I'm going to scan this object because this was the thing that it was, that's the cause of it. And you're like, well, no, apparently that wasn't it. And it's like, there's a little thing in this game. It's a little fiddly, I guess, I call it, when is a kitchen utensil suddenly a melee weapon?
Yeah, there is some questionable titling of things.
Let's say you find a kitchen knife at a crime scene.
Right. Is it a murder weapon or a kitchen utensil? It's both. So now now you don't know if you're wasting time asking. There's clarity issues sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think if you're getting frustrated by that, you're probably not in this game for the right reason. You're not. This is not an optimization exercise as much as it is a LARPing experience.
But just sometimes those little things can take me out of it.
Totally.
But I totally understand why it's there mechanically and how those are going to naturally
I think
intersect.
it's there to obfuscate on purpose a little bit, right?
I guess. But if you're actually talking to somebody and it's like, hey, there's a kitchen knife and there's immediate clarity.
Yeah.
Or this kitchen knife was used as a weapon.
Yeah.
And then this game, you can't necessarily say that. Another time, actually, I played with Trey and Jake a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
you played it at game night. Yeah.
At game night, and I screwed it up because I was reading quickly. I think Jake had gone up to go get something to drink, and he came back, and I was kind of reading what was on the phone, and we got some item. I don't want to say what it was, but it was a piece of clothing. And then he goes, "Oh, cool. We'll grab clothing." And and then, but apparently we were supposed to grab a starred item.
There's a stack. There is a deck of special items that are not your normal general categories.
Right, they're very specific to that case. And then when
they will instruct you when to go pull those from the deck.
And it said it clearly on the app.
And you missed it.
And I missed it because I was looking over my shoulder and he grabbed it and I was like, oh, that must be it. I just missed that it was the star and it wasn't, so it was obvious. Oh, that must be it.
Really throwing Jake under the bus here.
No, hey, I said it was my fault.
Okay, good.
But it was Jake's fault. No, it was not. But we went down the path and we were talking about it later. It was like, man, why are we not solving this? Like, there's got to be something wrong with the design in this. And then, but thank God, that's when I discovered the history.
Yeah. So you don't have, there's no memorization. As you can always go back and see everything that was said.
So,
which is, we used a bunch in our game because like, what did that guy say? Like, and that's nice to take that off of I feel like if everyone's sitting around feeling like they have to remember everything, that's a level of stress that's not enjoyable.
Totally. Yeah.
So let's move into our thoughts a bit about this. So I don't love whodunits in general. It's not a genre that I'm interested in. I am a vociferous reader. My whole life, I've always been a big reader. I never enjoyed an Agatha Christie novel. I do love a good Sherlock Holmes every once in a while, but it's not my flavor of choice in terms of my genres. I've never watched an episode of CSI. I have no interest in TV procedurals at all. So that being said, there is a limit to how much I can enjoy this because I'm just not all that interested in the genre. Like, I was thinking like, oh, if they did a fantasy version of this somehow I would be a little more excited about it. But just sort of, it ends up feeling to me like a slightly arbitrary puzzle because I am a writer. That is what I do for a living. And so to me, I feel like I'm less playing a game as much as trying to figure out what this writer did. Okay, I'm trying to get into his brain a little bit or her brain and figure out what this person thought was interesting. So to me, it becomes it feels a little bit like work. I feel like I'm reading somebody's television pilot or script and trying to figure out how good of a job they did. And I do feel like these things always feel a little arbitrary because they're trying to trick you. This is not necessarily the most rational answer is going to be the right answer or the clearest one. It's going to be the one you're least likely to come to. They're always sort of of course they want to make it work, but their goal,
they're trying to tell a story, make it interesting.
Right. But to me, that feels like they're just trying to trick me. Well, what would I naturally think is, there's a lot of like, the cards have art of the characters. They definitely want you to feel like, oh, this guy looks bad, or oh, I think this person's hiding something, and then they
red herring.
They will 99% of the time make you go against those natural instincts of like, well, this person looks dangerous or whatnot, or this person looks like they're lying.
In life, you're investigating a crime, and you're like, oh, well, you have your prejudice against somebody, or this person's the boyfriend, and this and that, and But it forces you to go, why is this person here? And write the story that makes sense. But one answer.
Agreed. But it feels to me like a system of binary choices. This person's good. This person's bad. Okay, so now I take this bridge. Now, and it feels like a branching series of right or wrong answers that I guess then they get so complicated a certain path that it becomes a little bit. I don't know. I guess it's just not. It's not. Doing well in this wouldn't interest me. I wouldn't feel a sense of success necessarily for having guessed it. I just would feel like, okay, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't give me the endorphin rush of, doing really well in a Euro that I love or something. Like, I don't care if I win or lose these to a certain extent, I guess. Like,
I agree.
It doesn't do anything for me.
Right. The point system doesn't really matter much to me. The experience is interesting to me.
What was the score that we got?
62.
Yeah, so you remembered that.
But yeah, But I play these kinds of games because I want to see what's possible. I want to see what they do with the app, and I think they did that well. There were some glitchy. There were some issues. Sometimes the app, the second device didn't always connect, and that was a little annoying. But setting it to the TV worked, and
there is a level of enjoyment for you that is research for things that you want to do.
Right.
I mean, you're looking at this game as like, oh, I want to see what these people did because this is a space I'm very interested in exploring as a creator.
Yeah.
Right. So that is sort of the carrot that's keeping you really excited about this game, I think, is like, I want to see what they did because I would like to do something similar to this, at least elements of it in your work.
I will say, like, in escape rooms, I wish there was more narrative elements in them. And lots of times in board games, there's not really much of a narrative, usually. And but like Gloomhaven, which is a game I love, like that has a lot of narrative and it's so enjoyable when you play it with people who get seduced by that.
Yeah.
But when you play with people who don't care, I don't want to play with them anymore.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I think something I'm learning about myself is that I don't really care about narrative in video games or board games. I think all I really need is a tone and a mood and an art style. And I think that's enough for me to have a good hook and to feel like I know what this is. I'm not one of those people who gets really into the storylines of video games, which is interesting because I love stories. I mean, I tell stories for a living and I read books constantly and I love stories. Movies are my great passion. But when in an interactive experience, I often find I'm the guy who skips through cutscenes, which you wouldn't think that of me. But I'm really only interested in the gameplay and in the mechanics.
When the story's not good in a game, you definitely skip through
Even when it's good, I don't necessarily care. I can't ever think of a game like I love.
Last of Us?
What's that?
Last of Us?
Didn't care. I mean, okay, it's fine. Sure. I skip through a lot of it, though. Or I rush. I don't skip it. I just read very quickly.
Yeah.
The games that I feel have the greatest storylines are ones that I realize have 3 or 4 lines of story, like Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda. Like that's all about tone and mood and a beautiful art style. And then I'm allowed to make my own story in it or put my own story on top of it. I mean, there's no story there. There's very little, but it's enough. Like I just need a little. I need a little. Like, and even in my board games, I need a little. I need a little bit of a theme or a story. Right. I don't need much, but if it has none, I can't. Then it's just an abstract game to me. I can't get that excited.
I say this like with games or escape rooms. It's not, when I say a narrative, I don't think they need a complicated plot. That's the last thing you want, especially in an escape room. Your IQ drops like 30 points when you get in that space.
Right.
You don't want to be keeping track of a bunch of details. But when you have a POV, when you understand why you're there, when that theme is married to the mechanics, and that applies to board games too, it is a much more enjoyable experience. You think that what you're doing is more meaningful.
100%.
So
no, and I think the greatest board games are ones that perfectly marry their theme with their mechanics or their mechanisms. I enjoyed this game. I have no desire to play it again. I feel like I got it. That being said, if somebody brought it out at a game night, I wouldn't be bummed out. But I don't think I'd play it in our game group. I think I think my wife would like it. I think I have friends that are not gamers that would be a fun experience for, especially the way the app works. That's all really cool. But to me, it's not. It's also not a great large game group game because if you're splitting into tables, it's a little hard if one table is playing this because there's a lot of talking. You really want to focus.
Right.
I think this is a bad convention game. You don't want a lot of other stuff going on. You don't want a lot of noise. You really want you and some friends sitting around a table and solving this together in silence for the most part.
I think you could play at a convention, but if you kind of get in your zone or whatever.
Sure.
I get your point.
So what are your overall thoughts on this?
I like it. There was some fiddly things, like again, like there were some app issues, but very little. It was actually really just connecting to the second device. I actually strangely got a French version of it. It was only on the specialist cards where it was in French. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, the
there.
names of the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt anything.
But then clearly this was written originally in French and then translated because some of the translations didn't work fully.
And we found typos too.
Yeah, right. When the characters are talking to you, sometimes you're reading it out loud, and all of a sudden you kind of stumble, and you're like, "What was that?" And it was like, "Oh, the grammar's a little weird."
Yeah,
very rare. It's fine. It's just you move past it, and it's fine. But other than those little things, and when is a kitchen utensil a melee weapon and things like that, which I understand why it's there. But I really like the game, and if you get with a group that wants to yes and the moment and. It is a lot of fun.
No, I think the LARPing element really helps. And if you've got people who are rush through. If you've got people in the group who want to rush through the story, it's going to be a bad night. Yeah, you really want people who are want to just get into it, find the meatiness of the story, and really dive in and get their hands dirty in the story and have fun with it. Yeah. This is a great game for you. That is our review of Chronicles of Crime. I think this is, of these types of games, this is the best I've done. This is the best I've played. Not done. We did poorly, but this is the best I've played of this genre. So yeah, check it out if you're interested.